Welcome back. In this video, we'll unravel the complexities of JSON and API responses within SmythOS, empowering you to handle data like a pro. Let's start by exploring how to handle complex JSON structures.
Can you guys see this here? So first of all, let me increase the zoom in here. I want you to see that it's not just the size, but that it is actually very, very difficult to understand or read when looking at this way. This is the kind of thing that you will get back from either a component or from an API call. Like I said, this is a Jira. This is part of what's called the body in an API call. This came back in the body of that API call, and it's actually one small piece of it, believe it or not. Right? The actual response is actually quite a bit bigger. So this is that same thing, but it's showing you inside of Visual Studio Code. And you can see Visual Studio Code here is nice because it does a number of things. It breaks things down here. You can actually format this if it wasn't formatted. You can format it. You can scroll through it. And it does something here that I think is super, super helpful, especially for large and complex documents. And that is when you're looking at this, as you scroll down, you'll notice up here that it is actually showing you where you are in this hierarchy. Very, very helpful, right? And you can also see the overall structure of this document. So this JSON capability inside of Visual Studio Code can be very helpful when you're working in Smith and you get this monster JSON document, which, by the way, this one, as you could see, it's quite a few lines, but it's not too bad, right? Let's take a look. This one's only 469 lines. That's not all that bad. This is what I've shared with you, right? So here is the actual document or response from Jira that it came through. And this is just giving me back the issues for this project. And it's a little bit longer. And it is 10,846 lines. So this is something you can expect to get back in some cases. And so the question is how do I actually manage this inside of my Smith world?
As we can see, JSON from API responses can be quite complex. Now, let's look at how SmythOS helps us extract specific data using JSON filters.
So let's take a look at what this is. This is a response from an LLM. Yeah. So definitely one of the things to do while you're listening to me is go ahead and download VS Code. And then go ahead and make sure you've downloaded this file. And we will start with a new agent and try and parse this out. So this is a document. You're going to find this is really, really normal in all of your API calls. So this is a fundamental thing we have to figure out how to work through and how to manage inside of Smith, because responses from APIs in the form of a large, complex API or JSON file or document like you see here is really important. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take this document, which is made up of different sections. And so you could think of the way that JSON is structured. There are these things called name value pairs, right? And you can see these. They each have a colon, right? And they're pretty easy. So, if you want to refer to, for example, the ID, you can do that. It's not too hard, right? We'll stumble through this together. And I'm stumbling on purpose. I've already done this. This is actually part of a different agent that I've already built. So this is not, there's no rocket science here. What I want to look at though is how do I get to the content of the description and then build that out and then provide that description and then eventually analyze that description, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take this document, which starts with this quote unquote object, the overall object here, which is the one issue. And then inside of that, we have all of these fields right inside of here. You can see how this is actually allowing us to see the structure of this document, right? So in the fields, we're there, we're looking up, we're looking for the description of the problem. And within the content of the description of that problem, I have, see this block here? It's what's called an array, right? We're doing this all because I have access to, or I'm using, and by the way, this is also available here. So if we take the essence of this document, and this is why it really helps to have VS Code. So in fact, why don't we just take 2 minutes, let's take a 2-minute break, and everybody go ahead and download and install VS Code. It's available for pretty much, and I can't think of a platform it's not available unless you're running on like some strange form of BSD or something like that. Maybe not there. But if you're running Windows, Mac, or major flavors and distros of Linux, it's all available. Okay. So I'm going to set a timer for, let's do 5 minutes. And if everyone can please go ahead and download and install VS Code, open up the file in the link that I gave you in there, and we can put it together. And what we want to do, just so that you know here, this is not maybe what you'll see. You might actually see, instead of the Explorer here, you might actually not see that. You might actually see something very, very different, right? I don't want to confuse you too much here, but it might be that what you're looking at is not the Explorer outline, but actually a list of files, right? So we want to make sure that we are looking at the outline for this document, okay? So the document needs to be identified as a JSON document, and you can, instead of auto-detecting, for example, you could say that this is just a text file. We don't want to do that. But if yours does not say JSON, make sure that it does. And we should have everybody set now with VS Code. They've got that installed. They've got our document open. And we can see here, as we scroll through the document, that you've got your fields up here. You've got your outline here to get to everything. We can see the overarching structure. So here's where we start with this document. We've got an object. That's what this kind of identifies here with a curly brace that has a node for expand, ID, self, key. And this is an important thing. This is actually the Jira issue key. It's kind of like the ticket number. And then there are fields. And these are the fields that are within this document. This is what I'm getting back from JSON, or from Jira. Or actually, this is one part of what I'm getting back from. The bigger piece is just too much to go through in a session this long. But this is exactly the same process that you will need to go through when you are working with, for example, Elliot, when you get something back like a list of the GUIDs for the people, you will probably have a document that's much like this that you will need to actually work with, right? And you'll have to actually look at it and take a glance and find what it is that you're looking for. This is pretty big, pretty complex. So can anybody think of how I could actually use Smith to help me with understanding this JSON? Any ideas here? Let's go ahead and take a look. So I go in here, I'm going to go ahead and create an agent from scratch. We'll call it the issue expert. Okay. And what we're going to do is build an API endpoint for picking an issue. And you're probably wondering why I would do that. Let's just look at this. And we're not going to use the chatbot for this, so I'm not worried about exposing it to the AI. And we're going to take whatever parameters in. And since this is a webhook, let me actually show you how we're going to do this. You won't need to do this for your exercise, but you should also be starting to work alongside me right now inside of Smith, building out your API endpoint. And just to give you an idea of how very real world this is, I'm going to go ahead and share that with you. So these are webhooks that you can actually create inside of Jira, which again is an issue system. And then I can actually detect when a new issue is created, and then go ahead and call my particular agent whenever that happens. So every time a new issue is created, it's going to call this. This is obviously not a real one. So what we would need to do here is I'm going to call this Jira listener or Jira issue listener, because there's so many things in Jira. Right. And then I'm going to need to deploy this. So everybody understand why I need to deploy this? If not, please do, thumbs down. Okay. Thank you. I love the interaction. That's wonderful. All right. So for an agent, for it to actually be accessible to the outside world, you want to create a subdomain. We're not going to create a subdomain that sits on your thing and not on Smith's for a variety of reasons. But and then we need to actually deploy it so that it has a production version. Now, the version in production, if you remember yesterday I showed this, is different than the version that we're looking at right now. Because I have deployed this, when I start adding things into here, like for example, I'm going to add a JSON filter in here to just get the part of the JSON, this big old JSON document. I just want to get a piece of it. So what I'm going to do is take that and pull it into here. But to actually get this to now work, I have to deploy it again. Once I deploy it, it's accessible to the outside world. Right? And why are we doing this? We're doing this because we want Smith to actually do an analysis of every new issue that comes in and potentially update that issue with a resolution. This is a pretty normal thing that you would want to chat an agent to do, which is if you get tickets that are created and those tickets have pretty common problems or answers, you want to go ahead and get the description of that problem and then analyze that description to see if you have an answer to it and use a classifier to actually decide if you feel like you have a very good answer or not a good answer. And if you don't have a good answer, you won't do anything. If you do have a good answer, go ahead, create a Jira response to that ticket. Okay, everyone kind of getting the idea here about the kind of the high level concept of the business case for this agent. We want to look at new support tickets that are being created, analyze those support tickets by pulling out the description, and then go ahead and take that description, analyze it to see if we have a good answer for it. If we have a good answer, go ahead and create a response. If we don't, go ahead and finish our thing. We may even want to update it with just, let's say, Smith agent reviewed requires live agent or something like that. That's an example, if you don't have an answer for it. This is a webhook. A webhook looks at Jira and says, anytime, and we will do this to a certain degree here, but we won't actually end up creating it. So we are looking at all issues, and we're looking for specific events that happen inside of Jira. And what I can do, for example, I can say, I only want this for project equals OP. Right? So now it will only look for created or updated issues inside of the project operations. When it does, it's going to send or basically make a request to this webhook and maybe pass along the issue ID, right? That's not how we would do this, but okay, does everyone see that we can create a webhook that looks at a specific project, looks for created or updated issues, and every time that happens, it's going to pass information along to that system, and that we will get that like a document like we already have that you've downloaded. Okay, everyone kind of understand the why here? Very, very common thing that you want to automatically process service tickets by a standard process before you give it to someone who's just going to go through their kind of process to say, is it this? If it's this, then send this document. If it's this, then send that document. This is what we're doing. We're only going to build a very small part of that. It's going to take the issue and go ahead, analyze that issue, pull out the description of that issue. That's all we're going to do. Okay. So what we want to do is go ahead and in our parameters here, we want to go ahead and put issue, right? For that issue, we're going to go back to our document. Mine is definitely set up different than yours, but basically you should be able to do a controller command A and a controller command C to copy. Mine's a little different. Don't worry too much about it. It's not all that important. Oops, sorry. Okay. Now I've got an issue here. What I'm going to do, just because I'm using it during development, I'm going to go ahead and drop it into, well, let's see. I don't know that we'll be able to do this. Actually, we don't want to do this. Let's grab a note, and then I'm going to drop my JSON into that note. Shoot, it's over 5,000 lines, isn't it? Yeah, I think it was more like 10. That won't work. What we're going to do is we're going to debug. We are going to inject our issue into there, and then we're going to step. Okay. And we know that what we're going to get here is our issue. And notice that Smith has already kind of encapsulated it with its own object. It says, here's the uh, the body, and in the body, we have an issue. So this is the body object. This is the issue object, which is this parameter, and it's going to pass that issue on to the next JSON filter. Okay? Everybody following me? Anybody not following me? Okay? So this JSON filter here has a very specific structure, right? And it's one that's actually inside of Smith. So it's different. It's a little bit different than the one that I had there. So if we go ahead and I'm going to do Command A, which Control A, C, and I'm actually going to go back over to my here, and I'm going to do a new document. And you'll see that this has a different structure from the other one, doesn't it? Right? This one has issue. Not just fields, right? It also has issue, then that, or issues, right? Because it can have many. And that's actually in an array. That's this funky thing here, which I can have more than one. And then here is, oh, I'm looking at the wrong one, guys. Let me close this. Okay. So we've got this one. Now, you can see here, this is issue fields, and now we're looking at project. We want to look at fields, and then where do we want to get to? Can anyone tell me where to go? If I look at this one and I expand it, I go to fields. What field do I want?
Description.
Thank you. Right. So part of what I want to do then is I know I need to go to the issue fields description. This is what a JSON filter does. It's very, very good and efficient at this. So let's go ahead, stop, turn on debug, go into our thing. We want to go to, what was it? Issue. Was it issue? All right. Let's go ahead and go back to debug and run it. Now what do we get? We now still have an issue. No, we should, this is not right. It's not finding what I wanted. So it should, gotta love how Smith actually plays with you. So we're looking for, I'm looking at the input right now to figure out why I didn't get back the response that I wanted. So I want to get, I have to, that the fields. So I think I know why. So I want to go issue, fields, and then description, right? Okay, no. So we should be looking at issue, fields, description, and it should be giving us the content of that description, which should be, actually, you know what? We need to go down to the content as well. Issue, fields, description, content. It's telling me that there's nothing in there, which means that I'm. So issue fields. So sometimes when I'm sure that I am having a brain fart here, right? So what I need to do first is just simplify my JSON filter. I'm going to go just with issue. Okay. And so it gives me just that issue piece, right? Which is, wait a minute, why is that giving me just that for input? Did I do that here? No. Is this issue there? Ah. Okay, let's stop here. All right. This exercise is not going the way I wanted it, but that's okay. This is the kind of thing that we run into. So we have you know what? I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to start here. Back to debug, go ahead and run it again. So does everybody understand what I did there? So what I did is I took that filter and I put it in just to make sure that I'm not going crazy and that I'm not doing something funny. I wanted to make sure that I was actually getting this correctly. So in this JSON filter, what I did is I just took that JSON filter and brought it all the way back into my endpoint, because I know enough about this endpoint that I don't need to do it as a separate JSON filter, but I'm using it as an example. Okay, that's getting me what I want, isn't it? This JSON filter is not. Go ahead, Mario.
Not sure, but I usually I include the whole path. So if I would make it comma separated and have it like issue fields, issue comma fields comma description.
You're absolutely okay. So I know exactly what happened, Mario. Thank you.
Yep.
This is exactly what was happening. You know what I was doing? I was using dot notation and not what this right here tells me to do. Issue fields, description, content. So let's go ahead and run it again. Nope, still not giving me exactly what I want.
You need to create the whole thing. Content type text.
What's that?
You are missing objects, or you need a description, content, type, and text. Then you will have it. Yeah. Content type.
Was it type?
Yes.
Let's see.
And text, I think.
Here, let's do this real quick. Issue, fields, description, content. Let's go ahead and run it. And then actually the type. But what we need is actually what we see here, which is essentially the array.
If you step it now, if you just make another step, you should have the desired result, I think.
So it's giving us description, type, doc, content, and then there we go.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I feel like you should explain a bit more. Probably lost some guys here.
Well, all we're looking for, remember, is to analyze the description of this issue. So we're gonna end up needing to process the content specifically.
JSON filters are powerful tools for extracting the exact data you need. Finally, let's explore how to navigate nested JSON objects and arrays.
So just so that everybody's kind of following along with what I'm doing here, we have an array here. So the for each loop takes an array, or basically a list. You could think of an array as a complex row or set of rows inside of an Excel sheet or a Google sheet, and that it can actually contain data within it. In other words, rows can contain rows can contain rows. So for each of the pieces of content, which can be paragraphs, it looks like it can also be like a hard break. It could be text. It can be all sorts of interesting things that go into that. So what we really want to do is basically go through each of these and then pull out the text and then return that text. One way to do that is a JSON filter, right? Which is kind of interesting, but probably won't work. Let me show you why. Run this. Oops, sorry. So we have the body, issue, fields, description, content. We're going to bring that array into a for each loop, which is going to look at each item inside of here, right? So you see that there's one. It's going to take just that first one, and then it's going to take just this second one, and so on. And then we want to try and get the text out of here, right? Everyone following along? Or have we gone too far down the rabbit hole? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay. So we know that webhook gives us that document. right? It gives us this document here, so we can use that in our building of the agent, right? And when we get that, we know that we can then, by looking at the structure of that document, we can see that it is going to be given to us as the issue in the body, in the fields, in the description, sorry. And so what we did is we actually just addressed it directly. Body, issue, fields, description, content. So if we go and take a look, go back to here. Body is part of what Smith gave us. Issue is the name of the parameter. Fields, and then here. And then description. And then within the description, we go to the content, right? Because we know we want to get to here. Is that helping, John? Yeah. Anybody else still confused as to why we're going the body and issue come from Smith, right? Let me take a look at this. Body, issue are saying, here's the body, and I want to look at the issue. And within that issue, I want to look at the fields, description, content. Okay? So everything here, fields, description, content, comes from our document. Does everyone feel confident that they could actually do that? Let's say we only wanted to look at the first. If we go back and look at, remember we've talked a little bit about arrays, which are basically like lists or rows of data. Within content, we have this item here, right? So if we scroll up a bit, it's going to show us, oh, you're in the content array now. Within the content array, I have a list of these objects, right? Paragraph, 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 paragraph. Whoop. This paragraph is made up of some funny stuff. More paragraph, a bullet list, not a paragraph. And then within the bullet list, there are list items, and so on and so on. So this is our content. So what we want to do is go ahead, and for what we're going to do here, we're only going to look at grabbing out the first piece of text in this agent, right? So what we want to do is get within the content, we're going to get the first item in the array. Okay? The first item in the list, or the first row in the sheet. Is everyone following me? Can I get some pluses or minuses or thumbs up or thumbs down? Okay. So when we're trying to look at the first element in that array, it's a different kind of notation. Arrays or lists, and you can see them, they have, can anybody tell me how you can identify an array? Just drop it into the messages, or go ahead and you can shout it out if you want. What were those symbols? Does anyone remember? That's right. So what we want to do is get, and here's one of the funny things, and this is left over from that coding JavaScript world. The way to refer to the first item in the list in an array is 0. They all start with 0 and not with 1. Okay? So this should actually give us that very first piece of content, right? So let's take a look now and see what we get. We get the very first item, And within that item, we want to get the text, which is part of the content, and the content has another array. Can anybody tell me what I would want to do here? To get this, which is part of the object. Here, let's pull this in. So within this, there is the content. Content has an array. It's that first item. What's in that first item? What do we need to refer to after content? The zeroth item in content. Anyone? We need to refer to the text in order to get this text, right? So to do that, we're going to have to turn off debug and go ahead and edit this part. So I've done something fun here. Let me go ahead, turn off debug, refresh my screen, come back into turning on debug, come back into here. Now I'm going to go back over and grab my issue. Go back over to inject my issue. Okay, so I did something a little bit wrong in what I did here. Go ahead, Mario.
This might be an display issue only. Could you indeed step it to the next step? Because sometimes when it's an array or an object, you do not see it in the output there, but it is there.
Yes. So
look at the yeah.
So what it is it's not just that, it's then we have to go into the content of the content. Content text. So turn off debug. This is getting way too long, by the way. Nope, that wasn't it.
Try to get it to the next step, because sometimes it tells you undefined, but it is it does not let you look at an object. Try to now step it and look at the input. Now you will delete the. Don't get nervous. Okay.
No. What I'm doing is I'm making it so that it's easier to see the input. If putting it into a for each loop goes into nowhere, that's the problem. So I can't. It's more difficult to see. So.
Yeah, you see, it is there. You cannot see it in the. I got tripped up by that behavior too. Just because you cannot see it in the preview from the output on your endpoint, but it is still there. But it's an object or array, and it does not display it here. It tells you it's undefined, but it is indeed not.
So what we want to do is go ahead and get the text out of here. This is something I'm going to try, but I've never done before with an echo element. It's not going to work. What am I talking about?
It is going to work. Just create the
Is it?
output. Yeah, it is.
Well, here's what I'm thinking about doing.
Yeah, that will work. Wait. Have a look at the input again.
Content, yeah.
Content
So I need
dot text.
Content and then the item and then the text.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shoot. Hit the wrong button. There we go. Okay. So now that we've got this to work, we can actually remove this. So what I want to do is change this. So what I want to do is get to the place where this is giving me back the array here, that I can then use this prompt to actually get the text out of and come back with a list of everything. So I now have this where I now have the array of objects that I need to process. So I'm going to drop that into the for each. I did that first by just getting the one, and then I'm going to drop the loop into here. So this is going to need, in particular, this is going to need some work, but let's see. Well, let's see how it goes. Okay, we're going to step through. We've got 12 pieces here. Here's our input. That's our first one. We step to the second one. Okay. We're going to go ahead and run this. Go ahead, Hazem. Hazem?
Can you hear me, Mike?
Yes.
Okay, so on the LLM on the right,
Yep.
It's an info LLM, so you should remove all of the content and make it only input. Hit the gear for that LLM, the gear icon. Yep, remove everything, make it input, only input, because that's an echo. That's it. Thank you.
Let's try this again. So does everyone understand what is going on here? I just want to make sure we get a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So what we're doing is we're taking the array here, which is basically the list of all the content inside of the description. And then we're getting the text from that inside of the content, that array. We're getting the text from that. But in some of those, that's not going to be correct. And that's going to be because not everything is text, right? Type bullet list. So it's not going to work for those. So it kind of, it fails in what we're doing there.
Navigating nested structures is crucial for working with complex JSON data. To recap, we've covered handling complex JSON structures, using JSON filters to extract specific data, and navigating nested JSON objects and arrays. These skills will be invaluable as you work with API responses in SmythOS. In our next video, we'll explore the advanced use of classifiers. We'll dive into their purpose and functionality, how to configure them for different scenarios, and best practices for using classifiers in your workflows. Get ready to supercharge your data classification skills. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.